Air travel is considered the most secure mode of transport. In fact, according to research, you're more likely to have a car accident on your way to the airport than on the actual flight. The issue, however, is that when there finally is an air travel accident, they are more often than not complete disasters, from costing the lives of hundreds to causing millions of dollars in damages. A plane crash is quite literally the worst-case scenario. But how do we prevent accidents from happening repeatedly? Well, that's all thanks to a little something called the black box. But what exactly is it? How does it work? And how are thousands of lives saved daily by a bunch of chips stored in a big metal box, costing about $15,000 each and saving the lives of billions around the world? The story of the black box begins not with a breakthrough, but with a series of unfortunate events. In the early 1950s, the world collectively looked up in the sky and was stunned by the de Havilland Comet, the world's first jetliner. But within a year, tragedy struck as comets began disintegrating midair. Baffled investigators sifted through the wreckage, but without data, they couldn't prove the cause. That was until a young Australian scientist named David Warren stepped in. Warren's father had died in a plane crash in 1934, leaving him haunted by a question: what if the plane could tell us what happened? In 1956, Warren built a prototype recorder the size of a lunchbox, using steel wire to capture cockpit voices and instrument readings. He called it the Flight Memory Unit. At first, aviation authorities laughed. After all, no pilot would want a spy in the cockpit. But as luck would have it, in 1958, another comet crashed into the Mediterranean. This time, there was no doubt metal fatigue was the culprit. Overnight, Warren's invention suddenly seemed less like a curiosity and more like a necessity. In fact, just 2 years later, in 1960, Australia became the first country to mandate black boxes. The US followed after a pivotal moment in 1965, when the crash of American Airlines Flight 383 near Cincinnati was decoded using cockpit voice recordings. This was the beginning of the age of aviation forensics. In the early days, black boxes were nothing like what we know today. In fact, the first flight data recorders etched just 5 parameters onto a metal foil: altitude, speed, heading, vertical acceleration, and time. At that time, cockpit voice recorders used magnetic tape, which could melt or snap, but as aviation advanced, so did the boxes. By the 1970s, solid-state technology had replaced moving parts with indestructible memory chips. These boxes would get so advanced that today's recorders track over 1,500 data points, meaning every flap movement, engine hiccup, and button press is recorded at a whopping 64 times per second. To protect the data, they're encased in titanium, armored to withstand 340 times the force of gravity, fires hotter than 1,000 degrees Celsius, and pressures found 20,000 feet underwater. Essentially, they are indestructible. But here's the thing: an indestructible recorder is useless if you can't find it, especially if the plane crashes in the ocean. So, to curb this problem, the boxes are painted bright orange and equipped with trackers that send out ultrasonic pings for 30 to 90 days once they come in contact with water. These pings have a reach of 2 to 5 kilometers and act as underwater beacons that guide search teams through some of history's most desperate hunts. But what happens when these searches are over? Once recovered, black boxes undergo a meticulous data extraction process in specialized laboratories. On board every plane and at every crash site, there are 2 recorders that analysts look for: the flight data recorder, which contains thousands of parameters, from engine performance to control surface movements, and the cockpit voice recorder, which holds the last 2 hours of crew conversations and ambient sounds. By law, modern flight data recorders must capture 88 separate elements per flight, including altitude, airspeed, heading, engine performance, control inputs, and more. Thanks to this extensive recording, experts use advanced software to decode and visualize this data, reconstructing the flight second by second. They listen for warning alarms, analyze pilot reactions, and even isolate background noises like engine hums or sudden impacts to piece together what went wrong. In fact, in some major crashes, investigators create 3D simulations based on this data, allowing them to replay the final moments with stunning accuracy. This analysis is crucial not just for understanding past accidents, but for preventing future ones. By identifying patterns and improving pilot training, aircraft design, and safety protocols. Now, here's the question. Just how effective are these boxes, and how have they changed the aviation field over the years? In many ways, black boxes aren't just feats of engineering, they're silent witnesses to human drama. Take Eastern Airlines Flight 401 in 1972. The crew, laser-focused on a faulty landing gear light, didn't notice their Lockheed L-1011 slowly descending into the Florida Everglades. Sadly, this crash killed 101 people. However, we only know this because the cockpit voice recorder preserved their final moments. By decoding this recording, we got an idea of how things really went down, and soon enough, the tragedy revolutionized cockpit culture, teaching pilots to prioritize flying the plane above all else. Then there's TWA Flight 800, a Boeing 747 that tragically exploded off New York in 1996. Although this was before the 9/11 incident, conspiracy theories ran wild. Was it a missile, a bomb, or something even worse? For months, investigators painstakingly reassembled the shattered plane, hoping to find out what really happened. The black boxes, however, told a quieter story. The accident was caused by a spark in the center fuel tank, ignited by faulty wiring. This disaster, too, would change aviation, leading to safer tank designs and longer-lasting underwater beacons. But perhaps no case shows just how valuable the black boxes are, more than Air France 447. On June 1, 2009, when ice clogged the Airbus's sensors, the pilots lost airspeed data. The voice recorder captured their confusion as they stalled in thin air at 35,000 feet. Soon enough, the plane fell for nearly 4 minutes, its data recorder tracking every futile correction. In the end, when the boxes were finally recovered, their revelations transformed pilot training worldwide, emphasizing manual flying skills in crises. Essentially, every time we successfully retrieve a plane's black box, we learn a little bit more about how to make the skies safer and make sure no crash is ever repeated. But for all its good, the black box has one major problem, one we really don't know how to solve. For all their resilience, black boxes have their Achilles heel. They must be found. Looking back, Malaysia Airlines Flight 370's 2014 disappearance remains a chilling open wound, simply because we have absolutely no idea what happened. But that wasn't the only case. Another Boeing 777 vanished into the Indian Ocean, its black boxes silent and their batteries long dead. These tragedies ignited debates. What if airline data was streamed live to the cloud? What if recorders ejected like airline seat cushions floating to the surface? One thing we've learned over the years is that air travel will always grow. At the moment, innovations are already underway, from satellite uplinks to crash-proof memory chips scattered throughout planes. In the end, the black box's journey mirrors aviation itself, a story of learning from catastrophe. And in a twist that would have shocked the man himself, David Warren's spy machine has saved countless lives, turning crashes into lessons etched in steel and silicon. Today, as planes grow smarter, the humble black box faces new frontiers as drones scan crash sites and AI sifts data for hidden patterns. Yet the core mission remains to ensure no pilot's final words, no plane's last shudder are ever lost. So, next time you fly, know this: beneath the hum of engines and the dimmed cabin lights, 2 orange sentinels are keeping watch. They don't prevent disasters, but they do something just as vital. They turn chaos into clarity, fear into understanding. And in that, they carry a quiet promise. No matter how deep the ocean or how remote the mountain, the truth will always find its way home. So, what do you think? Are black boxes the greatest innovation in aviation safety? Or is it time for a more advanced system, one that doesn't rely on being found after a crash? Should we be streaming flight data live to prevent another MH370 mystery? Or would that open up a whole new set of challenges? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you're fascinated by the hidden stories behind aviation technology, the inventions that make flying safer but often go unnoticed. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got plenty more untold tales of innovation, mystery, and aviation history coming your way. Stay curious, fly safe, and as always, we'll see you in the skies.